This video is going to show you Muhammad Eihab, one of the most popular weightlifters ever, as you've never seen him before, culminating with a frustration-induced max attempt strict press. An exercise I love seeing weightlifters perform to a limit weight because it allows us to see a slightly more human level of performance, rather than the superhuman 173 kilo world record snatch type things that we've seen from Muhammad Eihab. In this training session, we saw Eihab actually lose his cool a bit. Coming into the competition, he was suffering from a leg injury that he'd tried to rush back to full health. And as a result, he ended up struggling in this session, his first session at the World Championships. The last time we really saw him compete was 2018, even though it feels like just yesterday that he was right at the top. We saw him push Liu Xiaojun almost like no other, out-snatching the Snatch King with a 173 kilo world record, and then hitting a 200 kilo clean and jerk just a kilo under his best, which admittedly he did as a 77, not as an 81. And so with a 373 kilo total under his belt, he technically had outlifted every single person in the 81 kilo lineup at this 2021 World Championships. But after this World Championships, however, he would no longer be able to say that, with Carlos Nassar, the 17-year-old Bulgarian, outlifting Ehab's best ever 373 with 374. And also with China's Liu Xiaojun and Li Dayin absent, I imagine Muhammad Eihab felt as though this was his chance to become world champion again, as he had done back in 2017, again when China was absent. But there were some new athletes to contend with, younger athletes who also saw the power vacuum in the category. Having had 3 years out of international competition, Eihab was always going to be rusty. But what we really saw in this session was a man who was clawing at anything tangible that he could grab onto that made him feel like he had more in him. And once his hang clean felt heavy, he began missing sub 90% lifts as he began getting aggravated, particularly at other athletes nearby who were lifting and talking. How much of that we were able to capture on camera, I'm not sure, but you can see him almost struggling to decide what it is that he should be doing on this day. Is it hang cleans, jerks, pulls off blocks, hang snatches, strict presses? And at the point of starting to miss lifts, what entailed was a visual display of someone who was almost reaching, trying to get a hold of anything that he could that would allow him to train and cause him no pain. But as he moved from exercise to exercise, he became more and more stressed and frantic until he finally found the strict press, an exercise he could push heavy with no pain and find a way to feel like he had made at least some progress. He even had to change locations in the training hall because he was getting so frustrated. This was actually my first time filming Muhammad Eihab, and so I was a mixture of excited to see another new legend of the sport, but then also humbled to find out that he actually watches Weightlifting House and that he wants me to go out to Cairo to film with him. And so for that, of course, we gave him some Weightlifting House thumb tape after he had already put some of his own stuff on, but he ended up using it for his torn calluses, and he really liked it, and he actually continues to use it to this day, which is pretty awesome. In fact, Weightlifting House has now sold thumb tape to thousands of weightlifters, from amateurs to world and Olympic champions. The main reason being because of what our tape does. It allows you to train harder without creating or aggravating calluses. It's the longest on the market, it's super sticky, and it doesn't leave any residue on the thumbs. But also because at Weightlifting House, we funnel all product sales back into the creation of content. So when you buy Weightlifting House, you help us promote and document our sport, which, we think is really cool. So, if you haven't tried it yet, we put $5 in your checkout cart, which you can use on your first box of Weightlifting House thumb tape. And you can get that $5 at the link below to give your thumbs a break, train harder, and support the creation of weightlifting content. Okay, so onto the strict pressing, the reason we're all here. Muhammad Eihab is known for his upper body muscle mass compared to a lot of weightlifters, and so I knew he'd have a decent strict press. He was famously or infamously called out on live TV for his upper body mass being a waste of body weight in a weight category sport. And I'd probably tend to disagree with this. Of course, gaining weight in the upper body for the sake of it seems like a bad idea. But it's far more likely that Eihab has a body that is always going to look pretty big in the shoulders purely by his genetics, regardless of whether he designates 3 or 20 working sets to them each week. Also, something has to be said for the fact that he snatched a world record. And so his body was, at the time of that 173 snatch, more suited to weightlifting than anyone else's in the category in the world. I'm not totally sure what you would have thought that he would have made, but 110 kilos, 242 pounds, was certainly more than my guess. Particularly when I've seen Olympic champion 96s struggle with 120 kilos, and then 81 kilo Olympic champion Liu Xiaojun claim that his best was 80 kilos, which is honestly preposterous and surely not true. Perhaps it's the heaviest he's gone, but it's not the heaviest he could go. And so will Mohammed Eihab now move up to the 89s to compete with the likes of Tian Tao, or drop back down to 73 to compete with the likes of Shi Ziyong? Or is the world champion and Olympic medalist done? He may well stick to the 81s while the rest of the category focused on Paris, the Olympics, split up or down to the nearest Olympic category while he mops up any remaining medals. I guess we'll have to wait and see what happens during this quad. Also, don't forget that $5 off your first box of Weightlifting House thumb tape is right there in your checkout waiting for you. Don't let it go to waste. The link is down below. Please like and subscribe.